Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. So, there's this website that offers divorce advice and says that women should start dating as soon as possible after divorce. But what if you've been married to a sociopath? I'm Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com. And tonight I'm going to explain how recovery from marriage to a sociopath is very different from a typical breakup. Now, this is a live streaming show, and I'll answer your questions at the end of this short presentation. So, a Lovefraud reader once asked me what I thought about advice offered on a website that talked about women and divorce. In a post about relationships after divorce, the website said that women should start dating right away. It also seemed to advise women to engage in brief sexual affairs and to find a transitional partner who could help you heal, but whom you shouldn't marry. Well, to be honest, I was skeptical. Just maybe, this advice might be okay for someone involved in one of those amicable divorces where the partners simply grew apart and are still on speaking terms or even friends, and they both want what is best for their children. That advice is terrible for somebody who has been married to a sociopath. Breaking up with a sociopath is different. Women and men who have endured marriage to a sociopath need time, perhaps a lot of time, to rebuild themselves. Healing from these experiences has two distinct dimensions. The first is recovering from the betrayal by your sociopathic spouse, and there's always betrayal. The second is recovering from whatever made you vulnerable to the sociopath in the beginning. And I'll address each of these issues one at a time. Okay, so in order to recover from your marriage, it could be difficult, and the difficulty of your recovery depends on how much damage you experienced, whether physical, emotional, psychological, financial, or spiritual. Now, I know that I was relatively lucky in the type of predator that found me, although it sure didn't seem like that at the time. My ex-husband, James Montgomery, he only wanted my money. He lied to me, he used me, he betrayed me, but he didn't try to destroy me. When my money was gone, he just abandoned me. By the way, if you want to know more about my personal story, I'm going to be featured on TV next month on December 16th. I'll be telling my story in the season finale of a new show on Investigation Discovery, which is called Love, Honor, and Betray. What I went through was bad, but many Lovefraud readers had experiences that were far worse than mine. Some of you endured physical and sexual violence, gaslighting, threats, and brainwashing. Some of you continue to suffer because you have children with the sociopath, and your ex purposely uses the kids to try to hurt you. If you're still feeling raw from one of these extremely damaging marriages, the last thing that you should do is to try to find a new partner. Instead, you need to commit yourself to your personal healing. So, how do you do that? Well, first you take the basic steps of caring for yourself physically. You eat well, you find time for exercise, you avoid drugs and alcohol, you get enough sleep. If you have stress-related illnesses, you may need to address them. You also need to rebuild emotionally. Well, how do you do that? You allow yourself to really feel the pain of what you endured, whether it comes out as disappointment, anger, grief, betrayal, whatever. The idea is to get all the emotional poison out of your system. And the way you do that is by allowing yourself to experience it. So what does that look like? Well, you allow yourself to cry. You might curl up on the floor and wail. You might pound the pillows. It's a lot to go through. And you can't do it all the time. It's just too exhausting, and you need a break. You need to be able to take care of yourself. So while you spend some time processing your emotions, you also want to find other time to bring joy into your life. The idea is to do anything that you enjoy, whether it's playing with your pets or listening to music or tending your garden. Having nice, nourishing encounters with friends and family that you trust will also help. So if you want to know more about approaches to healing, you'll find many articles on love fraud in the section called Recovery from a Sociopath. So people often ask, how long should it take to recover? Well, there is no standard answer to that question. Recovery takes as long as it takes. But until you are feeling stronger and healthier, it is best not to get involved in another romance. And here's an important reason why. Sociopaths target vulnerable people. And if you are not yet healed, you are still vulnerable and a prime target for another sociopath. So that brings us to the second dimension of healing from this experience. Recovering from whatever it was that made you vulnerable to the sociopath in the first place. Now, many of you, as you make your way through recovery, may realize that your marriage to a sociopath was not the first damaging relationship in your life. There was an older, deeper injury that made you susceptible to this person. Some of you may recognize that a previous romantic relationship was exploitative. Some of you may realize that one or both of your parents were disordered. For you, the game sociopaths play may have seemed normal because that's what you grew up with. The pain caused by the marriage, this most recent partner, may have helped you to realize that you have a long history of being abused and mistreated. In fact, sometimes recognizing the trauma of your past helps to clear up one of the big mysteries of the involvement with a sociopath. It answers the question, why did I allow this person into my life? Perhaps you had experienced manipulation and abuse before, so to you, it just seemed normal. So, before looking for love again, you really need to recover from the sociopath, and you need to recover from the deeper traumas as well. Now, thankfully, you can do both of this at once. Recovery after marriage to a sociopath, it's messy, and you'll probably feel unstable for a while, but that's okay. It means you're getting rid of the beliefs, the wounds, and experiences that you no longer need to carry. And you're getting ready for a new life. So, as you walk the road of recovery, be careful about listening to advice from others. Most people have no clue what it's like to be involved with a sociopath. They have not walked in your shoes. So, however well meant, their suggestions may not be helpful and healthy for you. But I assure you, recovery is possible. In fact, if you watch my TV show, you'll hear not only from me, but from Terry, my husband. So tune in to Investigation Discovery on December 16th. That's the presentation for tonight, and next I'll be answering your questions. If you have a question, please be sure to subscribe, as I said before, so that you can ask it. You only need to be a subscriber for 1 minute to participate in the chat and ask a question. And there's benefits to subscribing. You'll automatically be notified about all my new videos. Plus, by subscribing, you boost the distribution of Love Fraud Live on Google, which means you help to spread the word about all these dangerous sociopaths who live among us. You may have seen also that here at Lovefraud Live, we've implemented Super Chat on the YouTube show, which offers you the opportunity to contribute to Lovefraud's work. I really appreciate the donations that we've received so far over the past few months. And if you'd like to support us, it's really easy. All you have to do is click the little $ in the chat window and slide the button to the amount that you'd like to contribute. There's also a link in the description below the video window where you can make a tax-deductible contribution to Lovefraud's education programs if you want. So, okay, so let's, oh my goodness, lot of chat going on today. Let's see what we have. Okay, so from Bella has a question. Is it true that sociopaths use seduction to capture their prey? They won't accept a woman around them who loves someone else than they. Sociopaths engage in calculated seduction. That's what they do. The sad truth is that sociopaths are simply not able to truly love anybody. And this is what is the core of the disorder. Sociopaths do not have the ability to love the way regular people do. And I can explain what that means. Researchers have identified what romantic love actually is, and they've identified that there are 3 components to romantic love. And the components are, first, attachment, and what that means is that you consider somebody to be special and you want to have that person around you, and sociopaths are quite capable of doing that. The second component of romantic love is sex, pretty self-explanatory. And the third component of romantic love is caregiving. And what that means is that if you love somebody, you want to take care of them. You want what's best for them. You want them to be healthy and happy and to flourish. Well, sociopaths can do the first 2. They can do attachment and they can do sex. They certainly can do sex. They do not do caregiving. They do not have the ability to put anyone else before them, but before themselves. I mean, they're just totally focused on, their own needs and desires. They're totally entitled. So they simply do not have the ability to fully love. So when they seduce somebody, and that's what they do, I call it a calculated seduction. Essentially what happens is that if they run across you, the first thing they do is figure out if you have something that they want. Then they figure out what your vulnerabilities are, and then they use your vulnerabilities to get you to give them what they want. Now, there's no love involved here. This is all about targeting you to get you to give them something that they want or to take advantage of you in some way. So even though they say words like, I love you, and they often say it very quickly and it sounds really passionate, it's not real. It's not real. They do not have the capacity. But they have learned that if they say, I love you, they get what they want. So that's why they do it. Okay. Oh, Ellie says, so what if you are running out of time to have a family? I am 36 and still would love to have a family. I've been with the sociopath for 6 years, and if we break up, I don't have time to heal. I know what you mean. I was there myself. I was 40 years old when I met my sociopathic ex-husband, and at the time, I hadn't been married before and hadn't any children, and was still hanging on that, I was healthy, and maybe that I would be able to do this. Luckily, it didn't happen. I can say that the last thing you want to do is have children with a sociopath. I mean, it will be a nightmare. And there's a couple of really, really serious considerations here. First of all, sociopathy is highly genetic. And what that means is that if you have children with a sociopath, there's a pretty good possibility that the sociopath can pass along his genes to the children. And that becomes very difficult because, genetics is a crapshoot. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But if a child is born with the genes for disorder, that doesn't necessarily mean that automatically they will become disordered, because after that there is an interaction between nature and nurture. I mean, they may have a genetic predisposition, but it depends what kind of parenting they get and what their environment is like when they grow up. Well, the problem is sociopaths make terrible parents. I mean, as I said before, they literally do not have the capacity to love. And that includes their own children. They do not have the capacity to put their kids before themselves and to do what's best for their children. So if you were to have a child with a sociopath, you could end up with someone who turns out to be a sociopath themselves. I mean, you might be able to overcome the genetics, but maybe not. The sociopath will certainly not be a full partner in raising the children, and he will either abandon them or try to actually turn the kids into little disordered mini-me's, which you don't want that either. Plus, you're stuck with this person for the rest of your life, because now that you share children, you're permanently connected to this individual. So even though you're 36, that's not a reason to stay with a sociopath. If you know, or you're fairly confident that this person is a sociopath, I recommend that you end the involvement and work on your healing. I mean, you may still have some time. You might be able to get over it in a year or something like that. But it's just not worth staying for. I mean, I can't tell you how many horror stories I hear from people who have had children with sociopaths. Okay. My goodness, Patricia. Thank you for contacting me from the UK. 1 o'clock in the morning. Wow. Okay, so Heather asks, do sociopaths ever think about their past victims? Yeah. And essentially, the way they think about them is whether or not they could take advantage of you again. Sometimes when a relationship with a sociopath is over, sometimes they turn their backs and walk away and you never hear from them again. Sometimes they leave, and then you do hear from them. It could be months later. And typically, the reason that happens is that they exploited you before, and they think that they can exploit you again. I mean, my ex-husband did this. My ex-husband was involved with a woman before me, this woman from California, and he took $200,000 or $300,000 from her. And then essentially one day when she was off at her son's graduation, he left. He had another woman lined up and had this woman, fly into California, packed up the truck, and he left with her and moved into her house and never said a word to the first woman. So her name was Jody, and she was totally brokenhearted. And for, how long was it? Maybe a couple years. And my ex married the woman that he left with, and then was gone a couple years, and then after he took all her money, then he went back to Jody and asked her, and he told her this story. Oh, I made a mistake. You're the one who was always loyal to me. Can we start again? It'll be good. We have this nice opportunity. And she actually went back to him. which proves that she had not recovered. She was still vulnerable to what he was saying to her. Well, he took her for money again. She lost another $50,000. So, yes, they can think of you, and the context is they're just wondering if they can come back and bleed you again. So that's the only thing that they think about. Okay, so Marcia asks, do sociopaths have a lot of delusions? The one I knew had lots of delusions and did a lot of future faking. Is this normal for sociopaths? Well, it kind of depends on what you mean by delusion. Technically, from a clinical perspective, a delusion means that you're, seeing things, that you're hallucinating, or, something along those lines. Sociopaths typically don't do that. They are in control of their faculties. They're not hearing voices. They're not seeing images or anything like that. So, that's the technical meaning of delusions. Now, it's probably, I'm guessing, not what you meant. Probably what you meant is that, they have these grandiose ideas and everything's going to, work out, and they're going to make $1 million and they're going to be famous and all this other stuff. Yeah, they do a lot of that. And that's just, part of the disorder. It's that, they're entitled and they think that, everything's going to go their way. One of the things about sociopaths is that they don't learn from their experiences. So they keep doing the same stupid stuff and the same things keep happening, but they keep doing it. I mean, that's just, just typical of their behavior. So if that's what you mean by delusions, where, they think that they're going to, get rich quick scheme or something like that, then yes, that's very typical of what sociopaths do. So Guillotina says, my husband ended up getting the nudes from the sociopath that kept threatening me. I had to delete all my social media and change my number. Okay, well, that sounds like you were able to get out of the situation, so that's good. I'm glad. Now, the important thing now is to make sure that you don't allow this person back into your life. And also, you also want to work on recovery. So, even if you have managed to detach from the sociopath, there's still recovery to do because these experiences they're traumatic. And so you still want to do that. Okay, so Chanel says, I'm 32 and my husband is 52. We got married really quickly and he lied about working and being able to have children. He also took advantage of me financially. Do they tend to get worse as they age? Yes. The short answer is yes. In fact, I'm almost ready to come out with my next book, which is called Senior Sociopaths. And it specifically addresses sociopathic behavior in people over the age of 50. And I can tell you that what I did was a survey of Lovefraud readers and collected more than 2,000 responses. Specifically, the survey asked about people, their experiences with sociopaths over the age of 50. And I asked that question. I said, did you know the person both before and after age 50? And I think it was about 40% or 50% said yes. And so I asked, did the person, did their behavior get better? Was it a little bit better? Did it stay the same or did it get worse? Well, 93% of respondents said that the sociopath's behavior was just as bad or worse after the age of 50 than it was before the age of 50. So you're still young. I'd ditch the guy. It's definitely not going to get any better. will get worse. They get meaner, they get more cranky, they get more entitled. So yeah, I would definitely recommend abandoning that relationship. Okay, so Viola says, I'm 40 now, left my sociopathic ex 11 months ago. I see my toxic family dynamic. Now that made me vulnerable. Wish I had seen it when I was younger. Why does it take so long to learn this? Yeah, we can all say that. You know, you can't see it until you see it. So I would say that now you see the truth. Now you see the reality. Now you see what went on in your family situation. So you start where you are. There's no point having any kind of regret for what you didn't know in the past. You know it now. So now's the time to work on your healing. Now's the time to work on your recovery. I guarantee you, if you work on your recovery and get rid of all that emotional poison that's inside, you can come out the other side, and there's plenty of life left. Plenty of life. So no matter when you start, it's always worth the effort to work on recovery after an experience with a sociopath. So Guillotina says, why do I feel depressed? Is this normal? Absolutely. Experiences with a sociopath really throw you for a loop. Because they lie, they betray you, they're callous, they hurt you and don't care. There's a lot to be depressed about. The good news is that you can take this opportunity to work through the depression and to work through the pain of it all. It's not pleasant, and it does require keeping going. In other words, you just keep going, and you just keep going, and you just keep going. But you can overcome this, and use it as a wake-up call. How did you get involved with this situation? What made you vulnerable? And address those issues. It could only help you to unravel whatever issues made you vulnerable to the sociopath. And once you do that, you set yourself up for a lot of happiness and satisfaction going forward. So, the past is gone. You can't relive the past. So why not work for a better future? That's the best thing you can do. Okay, so Francis says, I believe that the genetic predisposition is only what kind of inherited temperament in more people before they became wounded and then started making terrible choices while becoming a sociopath. The genetic predisposition means that those children who have this are primed to possibly become a sociopath. It's really difficult to come to grips with how much of it might be out of someone's control. Because what happens is, as I explained earlier, if someone has a genetic predisposition, that means that typically one or both of the parents is disordered. Not always. I have certainly heard of people who have this sociopathic kid because it came from somewhere else on the family tree. Genetics is a crapshoot. That can happen. But more likely, it's that one of the parents is disordered, or maybe the grandparents, a fairly close relative. And those people involved with the child's life doesn't help matters at all. So consequently, all this starts happening when someone is really young and before they even may have a conscious ability to know what they're deciding. So that's what I was talking about. I mean, that's why, it's important if you realize that you're involved with a sociopath. I mean, you really do not want to have children with this person, because just all kinds of bad things can happen. So, and a lot of these patterns get pretty well ingrained quite young. I mean, most sociopaths start their lying, deceptive behavior and everything by puberty. I mean, puberty usually causes it to kick in. So that could be 12, 13, 14, 15, I mean, they could already be on the path to disorder by that time. So later experiences could exacerbate it, but it certainly starts when they're fairly young. So Nikki asked, can they respect anyone? He treated his mother like a queen. Well, sociopaths can appear to be respectful if it's in their interest. I mean, if they think that they can have something to gain, then yeah, they can treat anybody like gold. If is the guy sponging off his mother, or is she paying his bills? I mean, that's a possibility. Or it could be, not a full level of disorder. I mean, lots of things are possible. But sociopaths can act in whatever way they think will get them what they want, as long as possible. I mean, I know of sociopaths who kept up this loving charade for years, reeling in the person who eventually became the wife or the husband. And once they were committed, married, they change on the honeymoon. But they can definitely keep it going as long as necessary. Okay, Viola says, finished the last hearing and was granted a 5-year protection order. That's fabulous. That'll give you time to stay away from him. So that's great. I'm really glad to hear that. Okay, well, it looks like that's the end of the questions for today. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week for the next edition, I should say, of Lovefraud Live. So talk to you later. Bye-bye.